So Hayes model, therefore, has two components, and they include the task environment and the individual. Now, the Hayes model has got a couple of limitations. These have been highlighted by Weigel 2002, and the first one includes the unclear situational variables, including participants, setting, tasks, and texts and topics, etc. What I would like to add here is that actually Hayes model has some discussion and some ideas about these situational variables, but I think what Weigel is trying to say is that it would need further elaborations. Now, a solution that is proposed here is using Grabees and Kaplan's model, which is based on the communicative competence or communicative language assessment, communicative language ability, which I will go through in a second. The second problem or not a problem really, a limitation of Hayes model is that it pays less attention to the linguistic knowledge of writers, and I think it's expected because this model is originally developed for writing in the first language or rather than a second language. Therefore, that's why it doesn't have a very strong focus on the linguistic knowledge. Again, the solution is to use communicative competence. Just to give you a background about communicative competence research, we can trace it back to Delheim's work and later Canali and Swain's a very comprehensive model, which was published in the first issue of the journal Applied Linguistics, which has been quite influential in the field of assessment and also language teaching. It has been influential. However, my understanding is it's necessary and it's the right time now to revisit the model of communicative competence and find out whether it lends itself to the complexity of language in the 21st century, especially given that in, for example, cognitive neuroscience research, it has been found that the wiring, the brain of kids has changed over time. I will provide a link for you to a wonderful review of the literature if you are interested in that, in this kind of research. This indicates that since the brain is rewiring itself as a reaction to the advent of new technological advances which emerge on a daily basis, really, it's necessary to revisit our older language and assessment models and to figure out whether there is any lack or there's any limitation and shortcoming that need to be addressed. I suppose we will find such limitations and we will need to address them. Now, I'm not going to discuss that more than this in this video. I will try to cover that in a separate video. I would specifically like to discuss communicative competence, the research that has been carried out so far on it, and some of the limitations that need to be addressed. Now, I'm going to move to the knowledge telling and knowledge transforming knowledge by Beritter and Scardamalia, which was proposed quite a long time ago, but I think it's worth mentioning here because it provides some interesting perspective on writing. The model also has a reading component to it and some kind of planning, but it doesn't explicitly mention that, so that's my interpretation. This mental representation of assignment is actually generated during a reading process, which was discussed before in the previous video. And then knowledge telling process starts when you locate the genre and you locate the topic identifiers. Together, these two help you construct memory probes. So far, this process up to here is basically similar to top-down processing and probably a little bit of bottom-up processing and a little bit of top-down processing, which, like I said, I elaborated on in the previous video. Using these memory probes that is similar or reminiscent of the text space in the construction integration model of comprehension or the situation model, the writer then retrieves necessary content or relevant content from memory using those probes. So it just reminds me really of top-down processing here. Then a run test of appropriateness. If it fails, then the process starts again, and it's like a loop. If it keeps failing, it goes back again, and so on, and it continues, and so on and so forth. Then if it passes this test, you start to write. You write your notes, you draft, and so on. And then you read your note. And that's why you can update your mental representations of the text. As mentioned before, this mental representation is called the situation model. I have discussed this in another video. Now, here is a knowledge transforming model. In short, a knowledge transforming model is a two-way interaction between continuously developing knowledge and continuously developing text. In other words, as you are producing your text, you're in a sense you are developing new knowledge, because you are synthesizing the pieces of information which are otherwise not related to each other. So you create something new. Therefore, the knowledge transforming model of Breiter and Scardomelia assumes that one way of producing knowledge is writing, and I think that's really brilliant, and I like that idea. The knowledge telling theory part of their model has been further extended. If you are interested to learn more about it, I recommend that you take a look at this paper by Hayes, which was published relatively recently, that's 2012, which is titled Kinds of Knowledge Telling, Modeling Early Writing Development. In this paper, he proposes 3 separate models for knowledge telling. In other words, he argues and claims that knowledge telling can be conceptualized in 3 different ways, especially in young learners and writers. And this refers to first language writing. I'm not sure if it would be applicable to second language. By that I mean, I haven't seen any papers on this. There might be some papers I'm not really aware of. But I quickly just show you those models. One of them is called the flexible focus model on page 373. The other one is called the fixed topic model. And the third one is the topic elaboration model. And this seems to be more sophisticated than the rest of the models in the sense that if the kids follow this model, their writing output might seem to be more sophisticated. So if you are teaching young adults or let's say kids in primary or elementary schools, I think these 3 models will be very helpful. For further information, please look at Hayes' model.